And good morning, you all. Good morning to you all. Okay, good morning, fellas, as Andrea would say. She has said that many times. Good morning, fellas. Good morning to you all. Starting a little early. And welcome aboard, everybody. Welcome aboard on a lovely Monday morning. That's right, it is a Monday morning. Do we have sound, Andy? You want to tell me what's going on, or you want to tell me what's coming off? I'd rather hear what's coming off. Anyway, that's the story from that. Got a lot to talk about, as usual. We're going to be talking about, where are we now in Major League Baseball? You know, with this thing with the, I'm not going to go into the Astros thing again, not going into that. Only that, I'll tell you, listening to Trevor Bauer talking about this thing is just unbelievable. Trevor Bauer really is a very entertaining figure, as you know, and it was brought to my attention this morning that, you know, Major League Baseball, when they televised the games, they were into this thing. They understood that teams were using the transmission to their own advantage. So what they did was, when we're watching games, we're actually watching it on a 15-second delay. But those teams that have their own network are able to get the actual 15-second delay. I didn't know that, all right? But most of the teams are getting the actual. And I got to tell you, Andrea pointed this out to me. If you see if you watch Bregman, watch Bregman at bat, when there's an off-speed pitch, he doesn't load up to swing and then lay off of it. Bregman doesn't. He's not a very good actor, man. He just stands there as if he knew that the off-speed pitch was coming, and he didn't want to do anything about it. I mean, it's amazing. See if you could find video of Bregman just standing there, not flinching, not loading up, not cocking his bat, not cocking his anything, you know. So that's what Bregman does, and I find that to be very interesting. Very interesting, okay? 15-second delay. You got Bregman standing still as if he knew that the pitch was coming and he wasn't going to swing at it, and away we go. Good morning to Greg and Chris Gallo and Doug Boyle and George with another great performance yesterday by George. If you don't know it, George is on at 6:30 on Sunday nights, and I got to tell you, he is an entertaining creature. Emphasis on the creature, but still. There's Joe Galena from the Fantasy Sports Network. Good morning to Joe. Kevin Hastings, Southpaw, Timothy My Hooker, the unholiest of Toledos and White Sox gal, and of course the thousands of guests in the chat room as well. So it's so nice to see you, and there you go. Right now, don't forget Fantasy Baseball. Start making your lists. Make your lists of teams that players that you expect to be drafted. We'll go over the entire Control the Draft formula in just a couple of days, and the draft guide will be coming out. I'll have that in there, so it's going to be very exciting. But here's what I need you to do. Make sure you get last year's stats. If you're in a 12-team, whatever league, get your last year's stats so you could use those numbers as benchmarks to where you want to be, okay? And that's what you do. So much, you know, with all the free agent signing, there's been a very lackluster trade market in Major League Baseball. But now talks are beginning to heat up just a little bit with Starlin Marte, who the Mets are involved, the Atlanta Braves are involved, and Starlin Marte. The talks are starting now to heat up right after the holidays, after the new year, okay? The likelihood of Mookie Betts and David Price being traded, this is interesting from what I've heard from people in the Boston area. Without the manager, it's tough, man. It's really tough. They don't have, their organization's not in place. So one of two things could happen. They could either keep Mookie Betts, and what I think that's what the consensus is, they're not going to do anything, or they could really start to unload. We haven't had the investigation completed or announced yet as to what's going on in Boston. It could very well be that the Red Sox, who were so far over the luxury tax, will unload bets and they will start a total rebuild. So that is possible right now. In Cleveland, I got to tell you, the Cleveland Indians, Toronto has made a pitch for Francisco Lindor. Now, Lindor's name has been bantered around all year, and the Dodgers, if they want to, we all know that they want to give up Lux and the catcher Myers, and it will only happen if Cleveland throws in Clevenger. If they throw Clevenger into the mix, the deal could be done. That's what I've been hearing out of Cleveland. And Atlanta has the ability to get anything. They are so loaded with pitching prospects in the minors and that kid Pache and the whole deal. They could do anything. Nothing much with Arenado. Looks like Colorado's going to hold on to Arenado for now. St. Louis was in the mix. But, it's very interesting that very, very interesting, by the way, with San Francisco making it into the Super Bowl. How about that? The 49ers were 4-12 a year ago. 4-12. 1 year ago, they were 4-12. Shows you how in the National Football League organizations can turn it around really quick. With an enlightened offseason, new coaches make a big difference in football because of the strategy. In baseball, I think coaches and managers are overrated, especially the managers. Everybody knows the X's and O's. They implement them pretty much all the same. The NFL draft, all huge opportunities for teams to turn it around. So when we bring that to Major League Baseball, and we say which teams are going to turn. I think the Red Sox are going to start to unload with the idea of turning it around. And I wouldn't be surprised if both Betts and Price go and the Red Sox start over again. J.D. Martinez on his last year of a contract, so that's pretty interesting there. Good morning to Dale as he's just joined us, and Big Al is here. Good morning to Big Al. Great to have the Big Al here. Texas with their new ballpark. They're going to be turning it around. They absolutely will be turning it around. So Texas has their new ballpark. Toronto, don't forget, I think the signal on Toronto is number one. Not the idea that they're in on Lindor, although that could be more serious than you think. You look at Toronto and they signed Hyun-Jin Ryu. Remember that. That's a big deal. Sometimes you have to read a little between the lines to get a real idea of what's going on. And you take a look at that Toronto pitching staff now. Okay, wait a second, they didn't sign. Did they sign Hyun-Jin Ryu? They got Blake Snell. No, that's Tampa. I'm sorry. Toronto. Yeah, Hyun-Jin Ryu. So listen to this now. So Toronto. They made a big deal to get pitching. Hyun-Jin Ryu, Tanner Roark, Chase Anderson. They got a whole new pitching staff, okay? Entirely new pitching staff. And when they do that, keep in mind, I think Toronto is the number one team, regarding wanting attendance to be filled in that ballpark. They could get 50,000 a night when they're good. They'll get bupkis when they're not good. But they can draw 50,000 people nightly if they're good. I think Toronto is going to be a big, big sleeper. And would it shock me if they made a play for Lindor? I mean, I know they got Bo Bichette at short. They got Travis Shaw. They got Gurriel. All right, they could use, what can they use? Anybody could use Lindor, okay? So that's my thing. Watch out for Toronto. They're going to have a hard time, of course, with the Yankees. The Yankees last year won 103 games, and now they're adding Garrett Cole. They're adding Luis Severino, who basically was out for most of the year. They're adding Giancarlo Stanton, who was out for most of the year, and Andujar. So, and we're going to be talking about the Yankees in just a few minutes. Good morning to Zelmo. And Arnie is here. Arnie will be coming on right after this show. Arnie will not be live, though. Arnie will not. That's a terrible thing to say. All right, but Arnie will be here. And his show is well worth listening to. And then followed by Kevin Hastings right after that, Aloha from Hawaii. So hang in there with that, okay? And, of course, the White Sox have seized on the opportunity. The Chicago team is not only screwed up, but the whole thing is screwed up. They don't know what to do with Chris Bryant. Is it going to be 1 year or 2 years? They don't know what to do with their new TV network. They're trying to sell and tell the fans that they're better off with a network that they have to pay for opposed to a network that they used to get for free. So this team, I think the White Sox seizing the opportunity. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that goes, okay? And by the way, I heard Ryan Booker, the former A's pitcher, I think he's a free agent now. He went on with, I think, Howard Stern to say that this thing has been, Major League Baseball has been warned about this for years, and they decided not to do anything about it, about this thing. And then you take a look and you scratch your head and you go, Jose Altuve hit 311 at home. He hit 381 on the road. Aaron Judge hit 312 at home, 256 on the road. So you take a look, and of course we told you about Alex Bregman. Same thing. 2 years ago he had better road record than he did a home record. So, but I'll tell you what, take a look at Bregman waiting there for an off-speed pitch and not even moving, okay? Not even moving. Trey Turner, just want you to know, this just in. There's a possibility that Trey Turner, if Washington does not make a deal, then Trey Turner could wind up batting third in that lineup, okay? If Washington does not make a deal, then for that, and they need a middle-of-the-order guy. If you take a look at Washington's team right now, boy, you got the loss of Rendon. It's gonna really hurt them, and I'll tell you why. Number one, of course, just losing Rendon, and right now they're going to have to, they fill in with Carter Kieboom and Asdrubal Cabrera as their two third basemen. They've got Eric Thames and Howie Kendrick as their first baseman. They need a bat, and Soto could suffer. Without that power hitting guy in front of him, Soto could be pitched very differently this year. And we all know about second-year players, about young players. When it's going well, they don't change it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, as opposed to pitchers and pitching coaches going back and saying, we got to pitch differently to this guy unless they make an adjustment. I'd be very careful with Juan Soto if Washington, and then, of course, they're not getting Donaldson now, and I don't know who they could get. Maybe Chris Bryant, that's about it. But if they don't get anybody, it could be trouble. They would have to bat Adam Eaton at the top of the order, maybe come back with Robles second, maybe come back with Trey Turner third, and then Soto batting fourth. Starlin Castro's in there. Eric Thames would move up a little bit. But still, this is going to hurt. This is not going to be the same Washington. The loss of Rendon was horrific. And you got to wonder, is Washington a better team with Strasburg than they would be with Rendon? I think so. I think Rendon makes a huge difference. Strasburg, to me, even though I took him in our slow draft, I'm desperately afraid of Strasburg being healthy. Scherzer, Carl Corbin, Anibal Sanchez, Joe Ross, Eric Fetty. Look, their bullpen, they did a great job with Daniel Hudson and Will Harris and Doolittle and Tanner Rainey and Hunter Strickland. The bullpen's a lot better, but they could be in a lot of trouble. And then Trey Turner, if Trey Turner moves to the middle of the order, I mean, look, he may not steal 40 bases, but he'll steal 30. But his RBI total will go up. One of the problems with dealing with Trey Turner in the first round is you miss the RBIs, and RBIs are probably the toughest offensive category to come by. Very rarely will a big RBI guy come up from AAA or the minor leagues. If you have to trade for an RBI guy, that means you're trading for a middle-of-the-order hitter. and that's where you get your RBIs. Runs scored, you can get anywhere. You can get, I mean, take a look at runs scored. It's not always the leadoff guy. People think runs is not the number 3 guy. They got the number 4, number 5 knocking in 100 runs. So runs scored, you can get. Phil Chaplin